Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me.
The air crackled with heat, waves of it rolling in from the distant horizon, carrying the scent of burning wood and scorched earth. Villagers fled from their homes, the terror etched in their faces, telling a story far older than any of them could remember. Tales of a city, hidden deep within the heart of Middle-earth, bathed in eternal flames. The City of Flames, a legend. Until today, what once was whispered in the dark corners of taverns was now very real. The flames had awoken. Gandalf felt it long before the summons arrived. The disturbance in the balance of magic stirred him in his travels, the oppressive heat tugging at his mind like an old memory. When the message reached him, sealed with the symbol of the local lords, he knew it was no coincidence. A great threat had risen, one older than any living memory. The village of Rinham had once been a peaceful haven, a place where the fields stretched for miles and the people worked the land in harmony with nature. But now, the skies above were darkened by a veil of ash, and the once lush fields were covered in layers of soot. Fires raged uncontrollably at the fringes of the village, fed by something more malevolent than mere chance. As Gandalf rode into the village, his grey cloak billowing in the heat, he saw the destruction firsthand. Homes were reduced to blackened skeletons, and frightened children clung to their parents. But what worried him most were the fiery creatures that now roamed the outskirts. Wolves made of flame, their eyes burning with a malevolent intelligence, and molten golems, lumbering masses of rock and fire, leaving smoldering footprints in their wake. Gandalf's horse neighed nervously as they approached the village square, where a group of elders had gathered, their faces lined with worry and fear. "Gandalf!" one of the elders called out, his voice cracking with relief. "Thank the heavens you've come. We broken bar, we don't know how much longer we can hold out." The wizard dismounted, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. "Tell me what has happened," Gandalf said, his voice calm but commanding. "Where did the flames come from?" The elder, a man named Baron, stepped forward. "It is the city of Broken Bar, the one from the old stories. The City of Flames. We thought it was just a legend, but it's real, and its magic has been unleashed. The seal that held the flames in check has broken, and now the creatures that dwell there have been set free." Gandalf's eyes narrowed. The City of Flames had always been a topic of debate among scholars and travelers alike. An ancient city, built by those who wielded fire magic, it was said to have been sealed away long ago after its inhabitants lost control of the elemental forces they commanded. The seal was meant to be eternal, to prevent the city's destructive power from spilling out into the world. But now, it seemed that time had eroded the seal's strength, and the flames had returned with a vengeance. "I must reach the city," Gandalf said, his voice resolute. "I must find the source of this magic and restore balance before the flames consume everything." "But the path is dangerous," Baron said, shaking his head. "The fire creatures grow stronger the closer you get. Many of our people have already tried to flee through the woods, but they were overtaken by the wolves and the golems, and we fear worse things lurk within the city itself." Gandalf nodded, understanding the weight of the task ahead. "I will not be going alone." As if on cue, two figures stepped forward from the crowd. Thorin, a dwarf warrior with a broad chest and a thick beard braided with silver, stood tall despite his stature, his stone hammer gleaming at his side. His dark eyes held a steely resolve. "I'll go with ye," Thorin grunted. "These fire demons have already taken enough from my people. Our stone magic may be able to hold back their flames. I'll see to it that they don't take any more." Beside him stood Elda, an elven mage, her long white hair flowing like silk in the hot breeze. She carried a staff made of ancient wood, the tip adorned with a glowing crystal. Her eyes, sharp and full of wisdom, met Gandalf's with mutual understanding. "I have studied fire magic for centuries," Elda said softly. "I know its nature. But these a broken bar, this is something far older, far more dangerous than I have ever encountered. Still, I will lend you my knowledge. Together, we may have a chance." Gandalf gave them both a small, approving nod. "Then we leave at first light. Prepare yourselves." The journey was as perilous as Baron had warned. The further they traveled from the village, the more treacherous the landscape became. What was once a dense forest had now been transformed into a charred wasteland. Trees that had stood for centuries were reduced to smoldering husks, their blackened branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Rivers of molten lava now flowed where cool streams had once provided life to the land. The oppressive heat bore down on them, and even Gandalf's magic could only do so much to shield them from it. The constant threat of attack loomed over them like a dark cloud, and it wasn't long before the fire wolves made their appearance. The pack of flaming beasts emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixed on the travelers. Their bodies were wreathed in flames, the heat from them so intense that the very ground beneath their paws hissed and smoked. Thorin was the first to act. With a mighty swing of his stone hammer, he brought it crashing down on the nearest wolf, sending shards of rock and flame flying in all directions. The creature howled in fury, but Thorin's magic held strong, his hammer creating a barrier of stone that repelled the flames. Elda moved with fluid grace, her staff glowing as she muttered an incantation. A torrent of water erupted from the crystal at the staff's tip, dousing the wolves in a hiss of steam. But the fire magic within the creatures was too powerful to be quenched so easily. For every wolf they defeated, another seemed to rise from the flames, their numbers endless. "We can't fight them all," Gandalf called out over the din of battle. "We must keep moving." With great effort, they broke free of the wolf pack and continued their march toward the city. But the wolves were only the beginning. As they neared the outskirts of the City of Flames, the air grew even hotter, the ground beneath their feet becoming too warm to touch for long. The molten golems appeared next, towering figures made of lava and rock. Their movements were slow but deliberate, each step sending tremors through the earth. Gandalf raised his staff, summoning a barrier of light to protect his companions as the golems advanced. "Thorin!" Gandalf shouted. "Strike at their core." The heat binds their form together. Thorin charged forward, his hammer raised high. With a mighty blow, he struck one of the golems square inches the chest. The creature roared in agony as the force of the blow shattered its molten core, causing its body to collapse in a heap of cooling rock. Elda, meanwhile, used her magic to manipulate the heat around them, drawing it away from the golems and weakening their fiery essence. Together, they managed to defeat the remaining golems, but the battle left them weary. As they crossed the threshold of the city, Gandalf paused to catch his breath. Before them lay the City of Flames, once a marvel of ancient architecture, now a crumbling ruin bathed in an eerie, flickering glow. Towers that had once scraped the sky now leaned at odd angles, their foundations weakened by the unrelenting heat. The streets were deserted, but the ever-present crackle of fire reminded them that they were not alone. "We must be cautious," Gandalf warned, his voice low. "The city's magic is still strong, and it will not take kindly to intruders." The group moved carefully through the streets, their senses on high alert for any sign of danger. Ancient inscriptions lined the walls, written in a language long forgotten by most. Gandalf paused to study one of the inscriptions, his brow furrowing as he translated the ancient text. "The Heart of Flame," he murmured. "It is the key to all of this. It once kept the fire magic in balance, but now it has been disturbed. We must find it and restore its power." "But how do we control it?" Elda asked, her voice full of concern. "If the magic is as powerful as the legends say, it could consume us all." Gandalf's eyes darkened. "That is a risk we must take. If we do nothing, the flames will continue to spread, and all of Middle-earth will be consumed." As they ventured deeper into the city, the heat became almost unbearable. The streets seemed to pulse with life, as if the very stone beneath their feet was alive with fire. And always, just at the edge of their vision, they could see the flickering forms of the fire creatures, watching, waiting. Finally, they reached the heart of the city, a massive chamber glowing with the light of 1,000 fires. And there, at the center, floated the Heart of Flame, a pulsating orb of molten fire, radiating power and danger in equal measure. But before they could approach, a deep, Rumbling voice echoed through the chamber. "You have come to take what is not yours." The voice boomed, sending ripples of heat through the air. From the flames, the guardian appeared, a towering figure of pure fire, its body flickering and shifting with the intensity of a roaring inferno. Its eyes burned with the same fire that consumed the city, and its presence alone seemed to make the flames burn even hotter. "You seek the heart," the guardian growled. "But only those who prove their worth may claim its power." Gandalf raised his staff, prepared for the trial to come. "We have come to restore balance," he said, his voice steady, "and we will face whatever trials are necessary to save this land." The guardian's eyes blazed with intensity. "Then let the trial by flame begin." The guardian of flame raised its immense arms, and the chamber around them trembled as pillars of fire erupted from the floor. Gandalf could feel the heat rising, not just from the flames but from the ancient magic that now filled the air. The trial had begun, and there would be no turning back. The first test came without warning. A wave of fire surged toward Thorin, separating him from the group. Gandalf turned in alarm, but Thorin gritted his teeth and raised his hammer. The dwarf's stone magic surged through him as he swung his hammer into the ground, raising a wall of rock to block the fire. The flames licked the edges of the barrier, but Thorin stood firm. His brow was slick with sweat, but his eyes were fierce. From behind the wall of fire, a figure appeared, an apparition of molten rock and flame, resembling Thorin's own people but twisted and monstrous. It stepped toward him, its burning eyes locked onto the dwarf. Thorin's heart clenched. He had seen too many of his kin fall in battles long past, their bodies consumed by the fires of war. But this creature was not just a memory, it was a manifestation of his greatest fear, the destruction of his people, the annihilation of their ancient ways. His clan had always believed that the fire within the earth was a force to be tamed, not feared. But here, in this place of eternal flames, that belief wavered. The molten dwarf raised its own fiery hammer and charged. Thorin roared and met the attack head-on. His stone hammer collided with the creature's molten weapon, and for a moment, the chamber shook with the force of their clash. The heat was unbearable, but Thorin's resolve held. He had to remember who he was, where he came from. His people had survived countless trials, and they would survive this one too. With a final, mighty swing, Thorin shattered the apparition's weapon. The molten dwarf disintegrated into a shower of sparks and flames, leaving only a pile of smoldering ash in its wake. Thorin fell to one knee, gasping for breath, but the trial was not yet over. A deep voice echoed in his mind, the voice of the flames themselves. "You have faced your fear. Now face the truth. Will you lead your people to safety, or will you allow their downfall in the pursuit of power?" Thorin clenched his fists, his heart heavy. "I will not let my people fall," he whispered. "Not to fire, not to greed, not to anything." The flames surrounding him seemed to calm, and the oppressive heat receded. His trial had ended, and he had passed. Gandalf watched Thorin return, his face set in grim determination. But there was no time for rest. Elda had already begun her own trial. The elven mage stood before a swirling vortex of fire, her staff held high as she muttered incantations under her breath. The flames twisted and coiled around her, forming a figure of pure Flamia herself. The fire version of Elda was terrifyingly beautiful, her form graceful yet deadly. She wielded fire with the same ease that Elda herself wielded water and air. Elda stared at the fiery apparition, her mind racing. This was more than just a test of strength, this was a test of control, of mastery. Fire was an element she had always been wary of. It was powerful, unpredictable, and destructive. Unlike water, which could be guided, or air, which could be manipulated, fire had a will of its own. The fiery Elda raised her hand, and a wave of flame shot toward the real Elda. She countered with a blast of water from her staff, the two elements colliding in a hiss of steam. But the flames did not die. They twisted, regrouped, and surged forward again. Elda's heart pounded in her chest. Control. She had to maintain control. But how could she control something that refused to be tamed? The flames began to close in around her, threatening to consume her entirely. Control is an illusion, the fiery Elda said, her voice crackling like burning wood. You cannot master what you fear. Elda's hands trembled on her staff. Was it true? Had she spent centuries trying to master fire, only to be defeated by it in the end? She couldn't allow herself to believe that. She had learned, studied, practiced. The key wasn't in taming the fire, but in understanding it. Closing her eyes, Elda took a deep breath. She let go of her need for control. Instead, she focused on the rhythm of the flames, the way they danced and flickered. She didn't try to fight them, she let them flow around her. When she opened her eyes again, the fiery version of herself was gone. The flames had receded, leaving only the glowing embers of what had once been a terrifying inferno. Elda stood tall, her confidence restored. She had passed her trial. Gandalf observed silently, nodding in approval. His companions had proven their worth, but now it was his turn. The Guardian of Flame loomed over him, its fiery gaze piercing through the wizard's calm exterior. You have watched them face their fears. Now you must face your own. The flames around Gandalf rose higher, forming a towering wall of fire that encircled him. In the center of the flames, a figure appeared as Saruman. The white-robed figure stood tall, his staff gleaming with power, but there was something darker in his gaze. It was the Saruman of old, before his fall to corruption, before his ambition had consumed him. Gandalf's heart tightened at the sight. Saruman had once been his friend, his mentor. They had shared a common goal, a desire to protect Middle-earth from the forces of darkness. But Saruman's pride had led him down a dangerous path, one that had ultimately destroyed him. The apparition of Saruman stepped forward, his voice smooth and confident. You always believed you were better than me, didn't you, Gandalf? But you were wrong. You always feared failure, feared that you would not be strong enough to face what lies ahead. Gandalf's grip tightened on his staff. The fire was not Saruman, it was a manifestation of his deepest fear, the fear of failure, of not being able to protect Middle-earth from the darkness that threatened it. He had faced this fear many times before, but it had never truly left him. You are wrong, Gandalf said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. I do not fear failure. I fear what will happen if I do nothing. And that is why I continue to fight, no matter the odds. Saruman's figure flickered, the flames distorting his image. But can you really succeed, or will you fall, as I did? Gandalf took a step forward, his staff glowing with a soft, white light. I fight not for myself, but for those who cannot. And that is why I will never fall. With a wave of his staff, Gandalf dispelled the flames. The image of Saruman vanished, and the heat around him lessened. The trial had ended, and Gandalf had passed. The Guardian of Flame, now calmer, nodded its fiery head in approval. You have proven your worth, it said, its voice still deep but no longer menacing. You may now claim the Heart of Flame. Gandalf stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the pulsating orb of molten fire that hovered in the center of the chamber. The Heart of Flame was a thing of incredible beauty, yet terrifying in its power. It was the source of the city's magic, the force that had once kept the flames in balance. But now, it was unstable, its power threatening to consume everything. Carefully, Gandalf raised his staff and began the incantation. His voice echoed through the chamber, each word resonating with ancient magic. The Heart of Flame pulsed in response, its fiery glow intensifying as Gandalf worked to restore the balance. But even as Gandalf channeled his magic, the fire creatures began to stir. The wolves, the gillims, the flame wraiths, all of them emerged from the shadows, their eyes burning with fury. They would not allow the heart to be taken without a fight. Thorin and Elda readied themselves. The final battle has begun. The chamber erupted in chaos as the fire creatures swarmed toward them. Thorin swung his hammer with all his might, sending the wolves flying back into the flames. Elda summoned waves of water and air, dousing the flames as best she could. But the fire creatures were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. Gandalf remained focused, his staff glowing brighter as he continued the incantation. The heart of flame pulsed faster, the magic within it growing more intense with each passing moment. "Hold them off," Gandalf called, his voice strained. "I'm almost there." Thorin let out a fierce battle cry as he charged toward the nearest golem, his hammer smashing into its molten core. Elda, her eyes blazing with determination, sent a blast of freezing wind toward the flame wraiths, slowing their advance. Finally, with one last word of power, Gandalf completed the incantation. The heart of flame flared with blinding light, and for a moment, the entire chamber was engulfed in a brilliant white fire. When the light faded, the fire creatures were gone. The flames that had once raged uncontrollably were now calm, their heat no longer oppressive. The heart of flame had been restored, its power once again balanced. Gandalf lowered his staff, his face etched with exhaustion. It was done. The city of flames was saved, and the danger had passed. Thorin and Elda approached, both weary but triumphant. "We did it," Thorin said with a tired smile. Gandalf nodded, his gaze lingering on the heart of flame. "Yes," he said softly. "But the flames will always remain. It is up to us to ensure they do not consume everything in their path." The three companions left the city, the oppressive heat now replaced with a gentle warmth. The sky above was clear, the ash that had once darkened the land now gone. As they returned to the villages, the people cheered, their relief palpable. They had been saved, and the flames had been contained. But Gandalf knew that this was only one battle. There would always be more threats to the balance of Middle-earth. And he would be there, ready to face them, just as he always had. The wizard's eyes glinted with quiet determination as he mounted his horse, his cloak billowing in the cool breeze. The city behind him flickered with its eternal flames, a reminder of the power that lay within, and the responsibility that came with it. But for now, the danger had passed, and the land could rest.